So stay tuned. I'm going to hand everything over to Donna. Just like before, if you have questions, type them in the box. She won't be able to see them right away, but I will get the questions over to her and she will answer them at her leisure. So here we go.
All right. So how do I share out a deck?
I am sending it over to you right now.
Okay.
So,
all right. So I can show my screen.
yeah.
All right.
And I can see it, so I assume the attendees can see it. And I'm going to go ahead and go on mute and let you take it from here.
Awesome. Well, hi, everybody. Donna Ryan. As Amy stated, I've got a community tool that I've somewhat recently released to the wild called WIM Witch. It's a tool designed to help people perform offline image servicing. So I'm going to kind of talk about why you'd want to do that, what's available today, and then do a technical demo of WIM Witch and take questions. So the first question, I guess, to tackle is, what is offline image servicing? And what that process does is it takes a WIM file, which is it's a Windows image, and you can apply updates to it. You can apply modifications. You can change configurations in what it contains. The value behind doing that can save time and add efficiencies. The things that we can do, one of the most common ones is to apply software updates. We can remove Apex packages if you want to. There's features on demand, language packs, RSAT, the Remote Server Administration Toolkit, which is now a feature on demand, can be applied at your WIM file. Oh, you can do some, additional miscellaneous things, like you can apply an Autopilot for existing devices JSON file to an image. You can apply various XML files, such as a default application. You can modify reg keys. There's lots that you can do to that Windows image when it's offline. One of the really cool things is it does negate the need for doing the legacy build and capture. So long as you don't need to bake in applications into the WIM file, there may not be a need for you to be doing build and captures. In the past with Windows 7, you would have 200 app updates that you would need to have applied, which would take forever. And so that would make sense to do a build and capture. But now with Windows 10 having no more than 6 updates in any given update cycle, going through that laborious process of doing the build and capture is by and large not needed, and servicing can provide a lot of those the functionality that the build and capture process used to. And keep in mind too, this doing an offline image servicing, it is optional. It's nothing that you absolutely need to do, but it is highly recommended. And why is it recommended? Because it can decrease your deployment times. And how it does that is by requiring you to have less steps in your task sequence. The biggest one that comes to mind is not needing to patch the operating system during imaging, which could take between 10 minutes and 40 minutes, depending on how many updates, speed of the machine, etc. You can also remove bloat. As a classic example, if you didn't want to provision Microsoft Solitaire to all your end users, you could easily remove those. It's fairly common process for admins to have a PowerShell script thrown somewhere in their Windows phase of the task sequence to go ahead and remove any of the Apex packages that they don't want. But if you remove them from the Windows image file directly, there's no need to actually have that step in the task sequence. The cool thing too is you can only add what's needed. You're not required to add language packs if you don't need them. you can remove the things that you don't want. So you get the image that you want to. And yeah, one of the things I really dig about doing this is it does give the end user a better experience. As if you're deploying a fully patched image, once you give them that machine back over to the end user, they aren't stuck in a need to patch and reboot once again. And so for the tools that are currently available today, Config Manager has some of that core functionality there, which it will do updating. And that's it. It'll also strip out the unwanted image indexes. If you've ever looked at a Windows image, you'll see that there's varies between in version between 8 and 11 different indexes that contain there's a Windows 10 Enterprise, there's Enterprise N, Edu, EDU, EDUN, and a variety of these other ones. And it's most common for admins are really only deploying one, maybe two of those. If you don't strip out those indexes and you're using a Config Manager to do the updating, Config Manager will patch each individual index. So your WIM file is going to get fat really quickly because each individual patch is going to get applied to each index. But that's all Config Manager has. And if it works for you, that's awesome. But there's other things that we can do with the tools. And so, one of the most popular and the best known tools out there is OSD Builder. And it's a beast of a tool. And I mean that in a good way. It can handle, .NET 3.5. It handles language packs, features on demand, your common FX removals. It's open source. It's a community tool. It's written in PowerShell. There's a lot that OSD Builder does. It can also patch Windows PE, Windows RE. If you've ever dug into OSD Builder, it is really cool, but it's very complicated. Whereas with WIM Witch, you have a very simple GUI, and I like to think that it's pretty straightforward, and so based off of the feedback that I've received from people that have been using the tool, that seems to be the general consensus. Now, WIM Witch does handle some of the more common functionalities. So the .NET 3.5, which if you've had to go through that process of trying to enable .NET 3.5 in an imaging process, you need to take the binaries out of the installer media from the SSX folder, make a package, and then have a step that applies GISM. Well, we can, with either OSD Builder or WIM Witch, we can apply that directly to the image. Currently, WIM Witch does not handle language packs or features on demand, but that is on the roadmap for 2020. What is unique, though, to WIM Witch is it does have functionality for Autopilot for existing devices. One, to apply the JSON file to the image, but also to make it much easier to retrieve the JSON file. Of course, WIM Witch will also do the FX package removal. And again, it's open source too. It's all written in PowerShell, all easily available. I did want to point out too that OSD Builder has way more features than I could list in a very simple chart. So if you do find that you have use cases or scenarios that Config Man or WIM Witch aren't handling, OSD Builder probably already has it. And all of these solutions, you can apply your updates and remove your unwanted image indexes. And even though I am the author of WIM Witch, and I'm very proud of it, none of these solutions are better than the other, as long as it's meeting your needs. As long as you're happy, you're getting the process that you want, use whichever tool works for you. Some of the additional features that WIM Witch does have, you can do build it, make a configuration, you can save it and load it, which is pretty neat. There also is command line support. And what that allows you to do is you could go ahead and set this to run on scheduled tasks. So you could have it run an update, download new updates, and then apply those updates to your WIMs monthly. You can also, through a bulk imaging creation option in command line, you can have it build multiple images, in one command line. So if you're trying to maintain a an enterprise 1909 and a 1903, and a variety of other images. Instead of having to do them individually, you can set it up and just with one command, let WIM Witch go ahead and tear into it. This also does check and update all of its PowerShell modules as dependent on. Currently, I am using OSD Update and OSD Sauce from the gentleman who created OSD Builder. Those modules are at the heart of the update catalog, but that's all I'm really using. Those modules get updated rather frequently, and so I do have WIM Witch checking to make sure that it has the latest and provides the options to update those, so your update catalog is always up to date. It also does check for updates to itself, which is kind of handy. I'm trying to, I've been averaging, an update about once every couple of weeks or so. And so it's good that the tool can handle that. It's going to also inject drivers, which for most admins in an MDT or a config manager scenario, they're doing that through either with a driver automation tool or an applied device driver step. But if you did have a need to have device drivers in your install WIM, say if you're using like WDS and you're want to have everything all contained, it can handle the driver injection tool. One of the common misconceptions that I do get presented fairly often is, oh, is this just a GUI front end to OSD Builder? And it's not. It is true, as I said before, that I'm using the OSD Update and the OSD Sauce modules, but that's the only code that I'm using from the OSD suite. I suppose I should also note that there's one other function that I did borrow, the update log mechanism I borrowed from Michael Nystrom, because it worked and it worked really well. Everything else is all my code, so while WIM Witch does leverage some of the functionalities of OSD, it's not a front end. And to visualize the difference between WIM Witch and OSD Builder, I've got a little image here to explain it poorly in meme format, which kind of does somewhat accurately, if not in more of a silly way, kind of sum up the differences. From additional functionality, what's coming up on the roadmap are server updates. I'm currently in the midst of working on that. Currently, we're supporting Windows 10 64-bit, 1709 and up. The server updates are coming. I'm hoping to have those done within the next couple of weeks. Language packs have been a huge request, as well as features on demand. And we'll be rewriting this as a PowerShell module. And so why I threw that on there, I started this project back in the beginning of July. And at that point, the longest script I had written was about 16 lines. So I had no idea how to make a GUI, what a function was, how to do all of the things that it did, I didn't know how to do. So when I started this project, I wanted to keep everything in one file for simplicity, which has now added all sorts of problems, just challenges when trying to roll this out. So once I get the server updates in there, I'm going to be rewriting this to make it as a PowerShell module, which make installing it easier, maintaining it easier, and adding features in easier. Plus, from an administration or from a writing perspective, it'll make it easier for me to remember where I'm at. For some documentation around this tool, I wrote up a walkthrough on the SDconfig MGR blog site. It has plenty of screenshots, some of the PowerShell commands that you need to get things loaded. But that walkthrough, while it was still for version 1, it's still 99% applicable. So if you need some instructions after the fact, that's a good go-to guide. This tool is available in the PowerShell gallery, which the URL is there. I also have various version notes and what bug fixes and whatnot have been applied. So there's some good information there. And if you wanted to actually install this, now if you go to the PowerShell gallery, it'll say use install-scripts, which I don't like using. because of how I have the WIM Witch content as far as updates, JSON files, and the save files. So if you actually do like an install dash script, it will install the script into, C program files, PowerShell. It installs it in a place where you really don't want to have this type of stuff, and then you can launch it everywhere. But if you just launch WIM Witch not in its own folder, it thinks you want to install it. So if you use the save script, it just downloads the file, and you can put it wherever you want to and run it, and then go through the installation routine. Either way, it'll still get it down there, but I would highly recommend using the save script command versus the install script. And as far as slide deck content, I'm not a huge fan of slide decks, so I'm ready to hop into a technical demo. If anybody has any questions before we dig into those, please feel free to throw those out. And if none come across, we'll start firing up WIM Witch. All right. And share screen. All right, so, here we go, show application. Here we go. Go ahead and move you up here. All right, so I'm in PowerShell running as an admin. I prefer working in ISE, but you don't have to. I do already have WIM Witch pre-installed. Actually, I can let me do this instead. I can show you what this actually looks like if you were to download this directly from, wait, that's a different box, never mind. Let's just do it this way. We'll go ahead and kick it off. Come on, tab, there you go. So simply I'm just running the wimwitch.ps1. It's going to go through a variety of, let's see, an ISE crashed. Okay, so we're going to try that again. Come on. All right. So right now it's going to go through a pre-flight check to make sure that all of its folders are in existence, making sure that it's in a proper location to see if it's actually installed. It's going to go ahead and check to see if its base folders are there. And then the first thing it does is it checks its own version to see if it needs an update. If it does, it'll prompt you to either hit yes or no. And it's checking its other modules, this OSD update, OSD Sauce. Oh, that's down here. And then if everything's happy and healthy, it goes ahead and launches the GUI. So if this is the first time you've run WIM Witch, what you'll want to do is import content. And by the content, we're looking at the install WIM and the .NET binaries. So what we can do is we can point WIM Witch at an ISO. And I will take, let's see, where is, okay, let's go ahead and take 1909. So now that I've pointed at that ISO and it checks to make sure that it's there, let's say I want to take the install WIM and I want the binaries. Now, just for fun, let me clear out previously imported. Oops. Imports .NET. Just go ahead and get rid of that so we can see that importation work. All right. So I'm going to tell it I want to import both. Now I need to give the install WIM a name. So I'm going to do, and I can hit import. Oops, let me bring back PowerShell so we can watch the logging happen. So what's going to do behind the scenes is it's going to mount the ISO without a drive letter. It's going to copy out the WIM file. It will then rename it. It needs to modify attributes so it can be used. And then when it comes to the .NET binaries, it checks to see if the folder exists. Now the cool thing is it's smart enough to know which version of Windows you're pulling into, or you're pulling in from. Because you do need, if you're the .NET binaries you apply to your Windows image file need to be of the same version. And so I have folders set up to differentiate between which version. At this point, we now have images and .NET binaries we can pull in. So once you've gone through the importation process and you have all the images imported that you need and the binaries that you need, you don't need to do import again. It's just kind of it just helps you bring in the content that you need. Once your importation process is done, now we can go ahead and pick a WIM file to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the WIM file that we imported, the 1909 demo. I'm going to tell it to open it. And what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and present us with a list of all of the indexes that are present within that WIM file. We can select the one that we want to work with. And so I'm going to go ahead and take Enterprise. Just hit Select. And then what that's going to do is it'll go ahead and list that, pull in some additional information that's relevant about this particular image, including the version number, which is pretty critical to the overall functionality. So for doing updates, and I will fully admit up at the front that this interface is not ideal for update management. I am working on retooling that along with the server capabilities. But for right now, it kind of is what it is. So if you need to download updates, downloading updates is done outside of the building process. So what you'll want to do is over on this side, you'll want to go ahead and check which version or which updates you want to download. And you can pick as many or as few as you want to. Now, for the sake of expediency, I'm not going to go ahead and download these because it'll tie up the console, and then when it'll download the cumulative updates, and that's going to take a good solid 5 to 10 minutes. But it does work. What that looks like behind the scenes, once that's been downloaded, we can look at the folder structure of this. There's an updates folder under your WIM Witch installation path, which will give you whatever versions, 1909, 1903. And it has them broken down by class and then folders. So you have the ability to see, if you wanted to go with this view, which KBs, what's being applied, that kind of fun stuff. When you do run the update, tell it to download, it does also check the existing downloaded updates to see if they've been superseded. If they have been superseded, it will purge. So just as part of the process of downloading your monthly updates, it will also clean up after itself, which is pretty cool. If your modules happen to get out of date, which OSD Sauce goes out of date fairly quickly because as new updates come out, David publishes publishes an update. So you can come in here and hit the install update, and what that'll do is it'll go through and uninstall the old modules, install the new ones. It will also tell you that you need to close out WIM Witch and PowerShell because it doesn't properly uninstall the old modules. The remnants of it will still be there. So if you do have to update your modules, you do want to shut down PowerShell completely and then relaunch it so the new modules have been applied. Once all your downloads have been, or your updates have been downloaded, all you need to do to make the updates be applied during runtime is really just to hit the checkbox, and then that's it. The process is intelligent enough to determine which version of Windows that you're trying to image, and it will pick the proper version. So once it's downloaded, just hit the checkbox. From an Autopilot perspective, and this one's pretty neat. If you've ever worked with the Autopilot for existing devices, there is a PowerShell module you need to download and then run a command from. And what that does is it'll prompt you for your login to Azure, and then it'll pull down all of the Autopilot deployment profiles that you currently have configured. It needs to be in a certain format. The JSON file needs to be in a certain, for lack of a better term, another format. I think it's UTF-3. And you need to load a variety of other PowerShell modules in order to make all the magic happen. So what I did is I just orchestrated them all together. So what you can do is you can go ahead and provide your Azure AD admin account, which I'm going to do here. and then we can pick a folder if we want it to download. Now, why I'm doing individual folders for this is because the file to be used for this particular scenario has to do demo 2. The file has to have a very specific name, and the Autopilot Intune file, something along those lines. So I break it up by folder. Once you've provided your logon and where you want to download it to, you can hit the Retrieve Profile button. So what that will do is it'll go through and make sure all of the modules you have are installed. Let me try that again. And then it will present you the list of all of your Autopilot profiles. And you can go ahead and select whichever one you want to. And it will go ahead and download it, throw it in that folder. Now, if I want to actually apply that profile to this particular image, I can go through and select it. Autopilot Demo 2. And you can see it gives you some confirmation on what the tenant name is and your profile name. Once you have your profile downloaded, you don't need to do that every time, unless you make, you build a new profile that has different information and you may want, or has a different name. But generally speaking, once you have your profile files downloaded, you really don't need to download them again. If you did need to inject drivers into your WIM file, again, which is not terribly common, but if you were deploying like a WDS or something that didn't have that level of intelligence, you absolutely could. Really just hit your checkbox and point it at a pass. There's nothing terribly crazy about it. I don't think I have any drivers preloaded on this particular box, so I'm not going to check that. But I've got 5 different fields. So if you needed to support 5 different models. That was kind of odd. Isn't my audio still working?
I can still hear you.
Okay, there was some weirdish feedback I was getting. Okay. So moving on with AppX removal. If you've gone through this process before, not with WIM Witch, you can do this through PowerShell. It's really just a variety of DISM commands, but this makes it pretty easy. So if I want to remove them, I want to hit enable the app removal, and then I can hit select. Now, what's crucial though is if you do want to select your AppX files, you do need to have a WIM file selected, because every version of Windows has a different set of AppX packages baked into it. And that's how it knows which version you want to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and hit select. And again, we get the classic grid view, but I can go through and select whichever AppX packages I don't want to include. So I'm going to get rid of Bing Weather, Get Help, Getting Started, Office, that was Shift. Get rid of some of the common ones. I can hit OK. And it's going to go ahead and queue those up. Now at this point, I'm almost ready to build. But what I can do, I want to give my output file a name. Now what I can also do is save this configuration. So if I wanted if I knew that this was going to be a repeatable process that I wanted to run each month, I could go ahead and save this, and I can go this. And I'm just going to go ahead and save it, and it says save. So at this point, I could go ahead and close WIM Witch, and I could go ahead and reload it. And back to save, load, and hit load, and load my file, and it's going to go through and read through the XML file, reload all of these varieties of files or configurations. So there's my AppX packages, there's my JSON, there's my updates. It's all there. As far as enabling Dotnet injection, there's just a checkbox. And I know that this is kind of an oddball place to put it, but again, we're still really in version 1.0 days. So But again, if you want to turn that on, you can just hit the checkbox. What's nice too is you do have this little confirmation to make sure that you are, have the options selected that you want to have selected, just as a nice little visual confirmation. If you want to change your mount path, you can. I've got a default into a mount folder within the WIM Witch installation path, but you can put that wherever you want to. The same with the where you'll save your file. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and make it so, which is clearly not homage to Star Trek: The Next Generation. So what this is going to do is it's going to copy over the WIM file that we specified over to a staging path. And that's going to rip out all of the indexes that we don't want, keeping the one that we do want. And then it's going to go ahead and mount this. Now, in the interest of saving time, I went and removed from my update source. I removed the cumulative update because it takes a solid 10 to 15 minutes to apply. Everything else is actually fairly quick. So the demo should run a lot quicker. But at this point, it's taking its marching orders. It's once it's mounted, it will go ahead and copy over the JSON file to its known path, start doing the updates. It does .NET first, then it will do the JSON file, then it will do the updates to make sure that .NET 3.5 is updated, and then it will do the Apex removal. The cool thing, though, on the approach that I took with WIM Witch, like if you look at OSD Builder, it'll update its own OSD builds. So that same package that you have built gets updated, which is okay. I have no qualms with that approach. But what WIM Witch does is it builds you a new WIM file each time. And the advantage of that is you don't have to worry about removing old updates and removing things that are superseded. It's brand new and clean and purpose-built each time it runs, which I tend to find as advantageous. While that's going, let me go ahead and I can open up another virtual machine here. This is actually my MDT dev box. And what I'm going to do is show you how some of the command lines work. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into PowerShell. And I'm going to open up the last version that I published, and I'm going to run this. So if you can see, it has discovered that that it doesn't appear to be installed. The criteria that it does is when the script runs, it goes ahead and looks for any of the subfolders that it expects to be there. If none of them are there, it assumes that it hasn't been installed and asks if you would like to install that here. I don't want to, so I'm going to hit no. And then it's going to ask me, well, where do you want to put it? Which is a pretty good question. Oops. So I'm going to tell it to put it in my existing WIM Witch folder, because you can install on top of it. It doesn't really, it's not a complicated upgrade process. And so then I went ahead and copied the script over, made sure all of the subfolders that needed to be there are there, and then we'll leave you at the path that you specified. Now what I can do is I can launch WIM Witch again, and that works. Now what I'm going to do though is I'm going to go ahead and close this out because I wanted to show you some of the command line arguments. So you can do WIM Witch. So as far as doing updates, you can have this when it runs check for updates and supersedence. So I can tell it to do, yes, I want to do updates, superseded. I can have it audit the existing ones and just say, hey, these are superseded, or I can have them delete. And then if there are new updates to download, I can specify a particular version, or I can tell them to grab them all. What else can we do here? Oh, as far as OSD Sauce, which is the core of the update catalog, I'm going to tell it that yes, go ahead and update the OSD Sauce catalog if there's a new one available. And then you have these other three. There's Auto, AutoFile, and Autopass. So if I tell Auto, just puts it in automatic mode. But you have AutoFile and Autopass. And the difference is AutoFile, you end up pointing it at a specific save file, from the GUI. And it's just going to do that job. If we do Autopass, you can point it to a subfolder. And you can copy over from, let's see, do I have jobs? Or did I have those? Configs, there they are. So what I can do is I can take, these are all various save files. So I can take these and just throw those into this jobs folder and paste. And then every job or every save file that's in here will get run. So you could have one for your enterprise 1903 and professional 1909 and potentially server 2016 and 2019 and have it do everything. Now, one of the things that I did build into this as well, like when we went and built our config file in here, we specified a name. With the GUI, what it does is it will back up if it discovers that an existing file, or if a file exists with the same name, it will rename that file with a date and time stamp, so you know that this is the old one and this one it was backed up. So you could have your Win 10 1909 Enterprise, blah, 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 and have that name be consistent. Now, let's see, did the wizard complete by any chance? Yeah, all right, so it's done. So we can see here that I went ahead and ripped out the indexes. It applied a servicing stack update. It did not do drivers. It injected the Autopilot profile, injected logs into the WIM file. Currently, what I'm having this do is takes the build log and then copies that to Windows before it commits the WIM file, so that way that there's a log in your Windows image if you needed to go back and see if what was updated or whatnot. And also exports the WIM file out of the dismounted, which saves about 500 megs of space, which is not too bad. And then it completed. So we should see in here. Let me sort by date. Yeah, and there's our WIM file, which is the result of building everything out of the GUI. Because the last thing, we were talking about the auto updates. So what this will do then is, if you point the auto file parameter at a particular path, it will run everything. Generally speaking, if you're happy working in the GUI, you won't need to use these. But if you did want to set up any type of automation or orchestration, that functionality is there as well. So it looks like there is a question here. Does it create a new WIM from scratch? Yes, it does. Every time it will do that, which is by design. I didn't want to get into having to maintain and remove superseded updates and then worry about conflicts. Dotnet can also be a little bit tricky with its updates so it's from a development and deployment point of view, and to just have it build a new image each time. Any other questions?
There are quite a few questions that I've assigned to you. You'll find them in the GoToWebinar panel. Otherwise, I can just read them off to you if you'd like.
Okay, yeah, because I'm looking under the chat there. Yeah, if you want to go ahead. Oh, wait, there's questions. Show answered questions. Oh, there we go. Let me see if I can expand this to make this easier to read. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's way easier to read. That meme was breathtaking. Thank you. When it's completed, will it give out a log file of how the PS is tracking in case there's initial troubleshoot? Yes. What that log looks like right now, it's really just it's more of an operational log. I do plan to have a build specific, so you can see it. The log really is going from when the WIM Witch was started. But it does give you that relevant information, so you know which OSD mod or OSD Sauce module is using for updates. Where we got config files from, which indexes were removed, which packages were removed, what updates were applied. So you do have that traceability. Am I running hash checks on the downloaded binaries? No, I personally am not. Can you manually add your own updates, or do you have to go through WIM Witch GUI? I suppose you could. I'm not doing any type of intel or validation. What I'm doing is running a bunch of nested for eaches from the updates. So feasibly you could throw an update in here. What may end up happening though is it may end up getting purged if it's already superseded. If applying any custom updates is in need, you can shoot me a message on Twitter. My DMs are open, so you can just ping me. I'm happy to add ideas to the roadmap if that's something that you need to have happen. Could you inject printer drivers in the driver tab, or would you be importing any cat.sys files only? I'm just using the PowerShell function of apply Windows driver. So as long as there's a .inf file, it's just recursively looking through whatever path. So you could try it. I haven't tried it, so I can't say yes or no if if it will function for you. But absolutely try it out and let me know too. I'm absolutely curious to see what you guys are doing with this. Not really a question. This is so amazing. Well, thank you. I do much of the semi-manually. Yeah. Thank you for showing up. Well, you're welcome very much. Is that where did that comment go? Who said that? That was Frank. You're welcome, Frank. I hope you find it. Hope you find it useful. Is MDT required for any of the functionality? No. The only thing that's required is PowerShell 5. You could take the outputted WIM file and throw that into MDT and use it, but yeah, there's no MDT. I'm not currently doing anything with Windows PE as well. I'm not building ISO, so there's no ADK. So yeah, all you really need is just PowerShell 5. There is a dependency though on being Windows 10 or Server 2016, and that was one of Windows 7 is eventually is going away very shortly. Hooray! But Windows 10 and Server 2016 came with PowerShell 5 installed by default, so I just set that as a requirement. Is there a way to have it inject custom files into the WIM file? Currently, no. That's something that I've got on the whiteboard, but it's not officially on the roadmap. What I'm thinking about doing is either having some type of window in there just for like a copy files with the destination. The other thing I've kicked around the idea is putting in essentially like a stop point. So you can put in here, stop before dismount, and then that way, a user could go through and do whatever they wanted to the WIM file. If you've got any suggestions or feedback, shoot me a tweet. I'm happy to add functionality. A log is better than no logs. That's very true. Is it possible to inject the log into the WIM? Yes, it is. And it does say in the Windows folder. That's exactly where that file resides. Pretty sure. Let's see if I can find that specific path. Actually, go to my dev box because I've got the script open. Oh, let's see. Where does it copy the log to? Under make it so. And this is part of the reason why I want to redo this into a module, because I just have this, 25 some odd 100 lines of code to try and parse through. Let me just go to Mount folder. Yeah, it does. I'm 99% sure it copies it over to. Actually, I know I can sheet define this. Let's see. Log file. Let me just search by my output because that text will be there. Edit F3, find in script. All right, let's search up. And it is copying it. Test path, if copy exists, true, update log out. To the script root, destination, mount log directory. All right, so that is just count. I think it's just dropping it and essentially at the root of C, which is okay. And so yeah, but that log file is definitely there. As its naming, as name goes, it's fairly self-evident as to what the log files, and sort by date modified. There you go. So it's whatever your WIM file name is, .log. Trying to keep it simple. Thank you, Aaron. It's a great tool. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome, Mike. I'm looking forward to seeing you at a MMS MOA. The submission window is now open, by the way. So if you wanted to present, that's open. If presenting is not your bag, you should still come to MMS. But, it's an absolutely fantastic conference. I can't speak highly enough about it. Another thank you. You're welcome, Mike. Being able to inject wallpapers, user icon, the WIM would be great. Reg edits. I don't disagree. I was starting with the basics. Trying to cover what 80% of people would need it to do. I do have requests for being able to apply your default app association, XML, start menu, XML. Those are fairly straightforward to do. Those are on the roadmap. I have to see how I'd actually try to control the registry edits. I haven't really played much around with it yet, so trying to be able to make that, do that from a GUI may be a little tricky, but I hear you, and I know that's a capability. So I'm not going to just dismiss that one offhand. And I think that brings it down to the end of the questions. And so I think that's about all I have. Again, if anybody has any questions or availability to inject Office updates, that doesn't work in an offline. If you wanted to do Office updates, if you're looking at like the legacy MSI, you can use Dave's OSD updates module, which you can download individually and then pass it parameters to download. Then you can throw those into the updates folder of the package source. But all the only updates that this will accept are just your Windows updates, and that's actually the same constraint too that you have within Config Manager. It's Windows only. So now that's my last question on there. So again, if anybody has any questions, if they run into bugs, idea suggestions, whatever, I'm always lurking around on Twitter. My handle is @TheNotoriousDRR. Please use the tool. Let me know what you think. One other constraint too, and I was actually chatting about this with somebody this morning. Currently, this only supports 64-bit. I was going for the most common. You could hack the code to support 32-bit if you needed to. The big criteria on that one, just in case anybody ever wants to go and dig into the code on that, if they have 32-bit support requirements. Let's see. Let me go ahead and find x64. Next. All right, search down. There it is. So this is where I have x64 hard-coded. And this is actually the function that brings down the updates. So it's using getOSD update, which actually is a download mechanism, and passing the parameters to it. So I'm going through these steps to ensure that I'm downloading and applying these updates in order. Downloading really doesn't make a difference in order, but applying absolutely does. Your servicing stack updates need to be applied first because that's the update essentially to the update agent. But you can see under the update arch criteria that it's x64. If you wanted to, you could go there and change to x86 and it'll download and then you can apply it. But I don't have any other logic detection to make sure, if there's 32-bit versus 64-bit. So if you're in mixed, I highly recommend not doing that. If you wanted to have a separate WIM Witch folder for doing 32-bit, you could come in and modify those 64s and it would probably work just fine. Again, not supported, but I don't see why that wouldn't work. So thank you very much all for attending and watching my little presentation. And for those who have already used WIM Witch, awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate every one of my users. And if you haven't used it yet and feeling motivated to, thank you very much. Again, let me know what you think. I'm always open to feedback, constructive criticism, and just general talking. One last question was snuck in by AJ. Any plans to allow updates to feature updates? To feature updates itself, no. Allow updates to feature updates. AJ, can you clarify what you mean by the updates to feature updates, or is that for features on demand? And features on demand is on the roadmap. Feature upgrades are not, because you can just take the new base WIM with a new version and just apply your usual quality updates. Not sure if that answers the question, but that's kind of where I'm at with that. So 1803 feature update is a point in time. We are client today and it's a year out of date. Oh, I see what you mean to those. No, I have, that's not on the roadmap. Actually, I haven't even really considered that as an option. So yeah, nothing at this point. Sorry, AJ. Again, thank you everybody.